Welcome to Living in the New Covenant, a daily podcast from In-Depth Studies. I'm your host, Paul Honeycutt, joined by Geoff Volker. Our topic today is creation okay for a believer?
Okay. I was recently asked this question by a friend of mine who was a believer, and the issue of cremation. And they were somewhat troubled by this, that as a believer, is this a proper way to deal with the body once a person dies? And I remember that when I was in seminary, I went to Covenant Theological Seminary in St. Louis, Missouri, which is now the official PCA, Presbyterian Church in America Seminary, and there was a series of books that it was, the author's name was Loraine Bettner. Now, he's a very Calvinistic, Reformed guy, good guy, but of course, his first name Lorraine, it's like the boy named Sue. That's not so good. But when I was in seminary, some benefactor or donor to the seminary, he had like 5 books in his works, bought those books for all the seminary students. So I remember getting a set of books as a student. And in one of the books, it dealt with this topic. And it dealt with it in cremation in a negative sense, that no, that's not what a believer should do. You should have a burial in the ground, the body in the ground, which has caused me to think about this. And now it is true that when we, here I'm in Book of Revelation, chapter 20, where it talks about the second death, that is eternal punishment. And it says, verse 14, then death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. The lake of fire is the second death. Anyone whose name is not found written in the book of life was thrown into the lake of fire. And so you have this idea of unbelievers are going to hell, to the lake of fire for eternal punishment. Okay, that's obviously very true. It's Scripture. But now it brings us back to the question: does the Bible address the issue of proper Christian burial? And the answer is no. There is no verse. Okay, now, so if there is no passage of Scripture that addresses it, how do we handle it? And the issue is, then remember 2 Timothy 3:16 and 17, all Scripture is God-breathed and is useful for teaching, rebuking, correcting, and training in righteousness, so that the man of God may be thoroughly equipped for every good work. That is, Scripture is all sufficient for what we need to know about God Himself, what we need to believe about God, and how to live in His world. So the Bible is all sufficient. Okay, now, that, of course, I believe that is true, and therefore, our God is all wise, that if we needed to know from Him information about a proper Christian burial, then He would tell us. And so, but He did not tell us. There is no passage. And so then we can say, well, He really doesn't care, which is true. Or we would say it probably in a little better language. It's an area of freedom. It's an area of preference for the believer. That's why this question is really such a good question. Not that that's the most important question that believers need to sort out, but what it does, it brings to light a very basic truth of Scripture. That is that if the Bible does not speak against it, then we are free to do it. And so the issue of burial, Scripture. Now, I should stop for a second and sort of respond to this particular criticism, that wait a minute, don't we have examples in Scripture of believers dying and being buried in the ground, like Jesus? He dies on the cross. He is put into the grave of Joseph of Arimathea. Okay, and then He rises from the dead from the grave. So even God Himself, when He became man, had a bodily burial in the ground. Okay, well, that's true. But now we will ask this one final question: is biblical example binding on the believer? And the answer is, it's only binding if the teaching passages tell us it is binding. That is, if biblical law tells us it is binding. Otherwise, it's just an example. But we're free not to follow it or to follow it. It makes no difference. It's a matter of preference. So, when all is said and done, unless the Bible speaks to the issue, it is an area of freedom. And in this area where, is there a proper way for believers to dispose of a believer's body at death? The answer is, the Bible doesn't speak to it. Therefore, it is a matter of preference, it is a matter of freedom, and it just doesn't matter to God.
If you would like more information about this topic or anything else regarding New Covenant theology, go to our website, ids.org, or you can contact Geoff directly at...
My cell phone number is 480-313-8558. My email address is volker.geoff@gmail.com. Just remember, the Geoff is a Geoff.